Hi, I'm Paul Edwards. I'm a self-published horror author, and first and foremost, a monster kid. Today I'm reading Monsters of the Movies magazine, issue number 2 from 1974. I thought some of you might enjoy flipping through this vintage magazine with me. Together, let's see what kinds of monster kid goodness is in here. All right, I love the cover of Monsters of the Movies, issue number 2. What a great portrait of Boris Karloff playing the Frankenstein monster. Look at the detail. Yep. And in this issue, we're going to get more photos and fright features than ever. Well, this is only the second issue of the magazine. Of course, the Frankenstein monster. Count Yorga and King Something's Been Ripped Off. Yep, this is the condition in which I bought the magazine. This is not damage that I did. But that's all right. We'll find out soon enough. Okay. Stan Lee presents Monsters of the Movies. Now, of all the magazines that followed in the footsteps of famous Monsters of Filmland magazine, overall, I think this one was the best. It didn't have a very long run, but the issues that it did generate really are good. So I have high hopes for this issue. The Last of the Frankensteins, Big, Big Monsters in Big Little Books, or What Did Kids Read When Comics Only Appeared in Newspapers? Rondo, of course. Count Yorga. You get a couple of pieces on Count Yorga, which was current at the time. All right, let's get to it. Oh, another big name from comics. Actually, two more big names from comics. Marv Wolfman, John Romita. All right. Would you believe me if I told you this was the Frankenstein monster? It is. This is from the silent Frankenstein film, the Edison movie, much older than the 1931 Universal Studios Frankenstein with Boris Karloff. If you've never seen this film, it's only about 12 minutes long. It's definitely worth seeing. I have it uploaded on my YouTube channel, on my Silent Horror Films podcast. It's absolutely worth catching. But of course, what's ingrained in our collective consciousness is the 1931 Frankenstein. James Whale, the director, made great use of the vertical aspects of the film. He would fill the screen right up to the top with something to see, and all the way down to the bottom too. And if you keep that in mind when you see his films, you notice he makes a lot of use of going all the way up to the top of the screen. This lab equipment from the 1931 Frankenstein, this existed in Hollywood for years and years, and it was just kicking around. It was in like various people's garages and stuff, and every so often somebody would find it and use it for another movie or a TV show or something. Even into the 1970s when this magazine came out, this lab equipment had just appeared in Dracula vs. Frankenstein, the 1971 film. Colin Clive as Dr. Frankenstein and Dwight Frye as not Igor, but Fritz. Fritz was the name of the assistant. Igor is actually a retcon, what we would call a retcon. They didn't have the term then. But Igor only started in the third Frankenstein movie. There's the bride, of course. There's Igor, played by Bela Lugosi. This is in Son of Frankenstein. Starting in Ghost of Frankenstein, Boris Karloff no longer wanted to play the monster anymore. This is Lon Chaney Jr. as the Frankenstein monster. And Sir Cedric Hardwick as Ludwig, the second son of Frankenstein, and Evelyn Ankers as the young adult daughter. Oh, this is a good picture. I like this. That is a good picture. Imagine looking out your window in your village in Transylvania and seeing that walk by. It's not even that late. It's only a little past 8. It's not like it's midnight. Oh gosh. Well, this is the Frankenstein monster, now played by Glenn Strange, having captured Dr. Niemann in House of Frankenstein. And this is also Glenn Strange playing the Frankenstein monster, chasing after poor Lou Costello in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. And of course, Lon Chaney Jr. playing Larry Talbot, the Wolfman, in human form at the moment, trying to get control over Bela Lugosi's version of the Frankenstein monster. Which he did. The monster actually listened to Larry when he was in human form. He just didn't like him in werewolf form. Oh, yeah. Now we're going over to the Hammer Studios Frankenstein films. Oh, and we're jumping immediately to Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed. I just did a video on Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed literally the other day. That's good timing. So you're going to try again, Dr. Frankenstein? Here we go again. Now, all right, so if you're a monster kid, you probably realize this is from one of the Universal Studios Mummy movies of the 1940s. But do you know which Mummy movie it's from? Which one is it from? I believe it's from The Mummy's Curse. It has to be from The Mummy's Curse, which was the last of the 4. Oh, wow. Karloff Speaks. Okay, Boris Karloff died in, I believe it was 1969, so he was no longer alive when this magazine came out. So when they say Karloff Speaks, I'll bet you it's an old interview of him, you know, and saying that he speaks from the past, that sort of thing. Oh my gosh. The Comedy of Terrors. They got together a whole bunch of luminaries from horror and did a horror comedy. It's hilarious, The Comedy of Terrors. That's Boris Karloff, Peter Lorre, Vincent Price, and John Carradine. It's about undertakers who try to drum up business for themselves. So this is interesting. I'm not sure if you would call this misleading advertising or not. So this is going to be a spoiler in case you ever want to go back and see Charlie Chan at the Opera. I am going to reveal something about it. Okay. So Warner Owen plays Charlie Chan. Boris Karloff plays a likely suspect in the murder. And he is in fact a criminal, but of course he turns out not to be the murderer. And his character sings opera in the film. And of course, Karloff was a superb actor, not a superb singer. So they had another person, a singer, dub his voice in during his singing scenes. So in this film, House of Frankenstein, Boris Karloff returned, but he wasn't playing the monster. He was playing a mad scientist, Dr. Neiman. And Larry Talbot was played by Lon Chaney Jr., the Frankenstein monster by Glenn Strange. Karloff actually did a couple of Frankenstein films where he was not the monster. This is one of them. And another one was a film that was shot in the late 1950s and called Frankenstein 1970 because it was set in the near future. In that one, he was the last of the Frankenstein family, and he was the scientist making the monster. This looks like my first apartment. Oh yeah, it's 1974. Young Frankenstein comes out this year. So, it's hard to remember now, but before Star Wars came out in 1977, for the first part of the 1970s, the big science fiction franchise was Planet of the Apes. Planet of the Apes was the series where they kept cranking out movies, action figures, board games, puzzles, picture books, anything that they could slap the label Planet of the Apes on. Color forms, there was a Planet of the Apes color forms. There was just a ton of Planet of the Apes merchandising. It was what we would think of as saturation merchandising. Right up until Star Wars came out in 1977. And then everybody forgot about Planet of the Apes and all they cared about was Star Wars. I've never seen something in pop culture get forgotten so fast when it had lasted for, about 10 years. The greatest movie series of them all. To this day, you can find people of a certain age who really still think Planet of the Apes is the greatest science fiction franchise. I mean, it's good, but the film series was very uneven. Oh, look. Get some horror comics. Nice. Uh-oh. Nothing good ever follows that kind of a scene. It lives. Better watch out. The Frankenstein monster lives again. Wow. Dracula's Last Stand. This didn't age well. What will probably be the last Hammer Dracula film to feature Christopher Lee will soon be released by Warner Brothers. The Satanic Rites of Dracula, originally announced under the ludicrous title Dracula is Dead and Well and Living in London, has been completed in England. Okay, starring Lee and Peter Cushing. Okay, so that actually is true. That was the last time that Christopher Lee played Dracula. I thought they were going to tell us that this was going to be the final Dracula movie, which it, of course, was not. Yeah, that's a series that you could easily argue went on too long. Honestly, I really don't think Dracula 1972 was that bad. I really don't. It's a shame that we lost all the gothic trappings of having a period piece, but the film itself really was okay. It was the next one, this one, Satanic Rites of Dracula, the one that followed. That one is where you were just like, okay, no, no, please stop. I did think that it was clever the way that Professor Van Helsing killed off Dracula in this film. It was something different. I won't spoil it in case you haven't seen it, but it was something different than the usual, either a wooden stake or sunshine or a cross. It was good to see something that took a little thought. The Myths of Frankenstein. If this Frankenstein looks chintzy to you, there's actually a justification for it. This is Boris Karloff playing Dr. Jekyll in the comedy movie Abbott and Costello Meet Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And in the movie, Abbott and Costello stumble into a house of horrors. And this is an animatronic Frankenstein monster. That's what that is. It's not supposed to be convincing to the movie audience. The Curse of Frankenstein will haunt you forever. All new and never dared before. Well, wait a minute. The Curse of Frankenstein was 1957. I mean, this could easily have been a re-release. Or is this an old lobby card? That's what it is. This is an old lobby card. They're showing us a lobby card from the 50s. Okay, now I've got it. It must be like 50% of the Frankenstein movies that have ever been made. They'll say that the Doctor is the last of the Frankenstein family. I never believe it. Big monsters in big little books. Ooh, Shandu the Magician. Bela Lugosi. You know, in the movies, Shandu the Magician, Bela Lugosi played the bad guy. But then when they made a movie serial, The Return of Shandu, Bela Lugosi got cast as Shandu, the hero. Oh, to answer the question that they asked us in the beginning, what did kids read before comic books? When comics were only in the newspapers? The answer is that the first comic books were really not what we think of as comic books. They were just collections of newspaper comic strips, all printed together in a compendium. Sort of like now, if you buy one of those books that has, you know, a whole bunch of Charlie Brown comics or a whole bunch of Garfield comics or something, that is the way that the first comic books were created back in like the 1920s. Ooh, Buck Rogers. And Flash Gordon. Who ripped off who? Do you know? You might think Flash Gordon came first because he was the first one to hit the movie theaters. But in terms of print, Buck Rogers came first in print. So Flash Gordon was ripping off Buck Rogers. Rondo took his deformity and used it to become a movie star. Granted, he became a movie star that was typecast into horror roles, but nonetheless, he made use of what life had given him. So good for him. Yeah, this was kind of sad, wasn't it? Missed any Marvel masterpieces lately? You get Vampire, Kung Fu, Monster Madness. The history of the movie Count Yorga Vampire is interesting. I keep my channel family friendly, So I'll describe it in this way. Count Yorga started as the script for an adults-only movie. And as they were making the movie, they realized that if they cut out the parts that were for adults only, the script really was good enough to be a real movie. And that's what they went with. So if you watch Count Yorga Vampire, you can see exactly where the moments would have been that would have made the movie inappropriate for those under 18. And they just decided not to film those scenes. And it's a fairly good little vampire movie. It's all right. It was good enough to get a sequel. Count Yorga Speaks. Robert Quarry. That was that actor. He was also in Dr. Phibes Rises Again. He was Dr. Phibes' rival. And he was also in the Vincent Price film Madhouse. He was one of the suspects. Yikes. Did that make it? I won't give this away in case you haven't seen the movie and want to, but the final 30 seconds of Count Yorga Vampire really got me. I have to admit, they scared me with that one. I should have seen it coming, but I didn't. Dr. Phibes, Vincent Price. Okay. Ooh, what the? Anyone recognize this? I don't. I'm reasonably conversant in 20th century monster movies and TV shows. I have no idea what that is. If you do, let me know. It's vampire time. Oh, come on. It's always vampire time. This is a behind the scenes. That's why the monster is smiling. In 1946, in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, they actually got Bela Lugosi back to play Count Dracula for the first time in years. And this is Glenn Strange as the Frankenstein monster. And this is behind the scenes, obviously, because Drac is having a smoke and he's telling a joke that Glenn Strange is laughing at. So Glenn Strange played the Frankenstein monster in several movies in the 1940s. And when the monster craze of the 1960s hit, a lot of artwork depicting the Frankenstein monster used his likeness. Example, right here, monster-sized monsters. This is in no way would anyone think this is the Boris Karloff Frankenstein. This is the Glenn Strange Frankenstein. And for that reason, Glenn Strange's appearance as the Frankenstein monster is very familiar to monster kids of the first wave in the 60s and also my group, the monster kids of the 1970s, because we were inundated with pictures of the Frankenstein monster looking this way, like Glenn Strange. We couldn't go a whole magazine without one of these. Oh, you can learn Kung Fu and Karate. Why just learn one when you can learn both? Oh, and look, you can learn it on a vinyl record. Huh. Yep. Extension school, okay. If you enjoy classic monsters and vintage horror, you would love my book series, the Mourner's Woods books. I am self-published on Amazon. I've written a series of novels that all take place in a haunted forest, Mourner's Woods. Each book has a completely new cast of characters enter into this forbidden wilderness and encounter a different threat in each book. Monsters, ghosts, banshees. But the greatest threat that any character has to deal with in Mourner's Woods is the friends who hike here with them. I recapture the vibe and feel of 20th century horror and B movies, but set in a contemporary setting. My name again is Paul Edwards. My books are the Mourner's Woods books. They're for sale on Amazon, and I post the link in all of my videos. Thanks for spending some time with me looking through Monsters of the Movies magazine, issue number 2. This was a good one. I'll see you in Mourner's Woods.